Bonjour.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Familylab and how you started the Familylab?
I started Familylab in 2005 after 25 years of being a family therapist. I had realized by the time that a lot of parents and teachers were frustrated about their relationship with children. And as the tradition was, they were blaming the children for the trouble. In the meantime, we had discovered that there was a crisis of values within families and schools. So what I decided to do was to take all the experiences we had in family therapy and translate them for families. I was traveling a lot around the world in those days, and I found that the crisis between adults and children was the same all over. So what we tried to do was to crystallize our experiences into a set of values. There was a lot of insecurity, there was a lot of opposition against what we said in the beginning, mainly because a lot of parents and teachers felt that they were supposed to exchange their own ways with a completely new. So it's important for me to highlight the fact that Familylab is not trying to sell a concept. We're trying to put on the table some of the principles and values which are working in a lot of families. And I think the most provocative of those is the idea of equal dignity. What we heard was that parents as well as teachers became very anxious when they started to believe that they could not have the full power anymore. So it's important to say that equal dignity is not the same as equality. Because of course adults have much more power than children. Many adults even have more wisdom than children. But they have one thing which is very important. They have a lot of experience. So there's no doubt that children need leadership, whether they are in the family or in school. But the kind of leadership cannot be the old-fashioned one, which was established by subject-object relationship, where the children were objects. I met a Danish boy, a 5-year-old Danish boy yesterday, and he said to his mother, "You are talking on me." And his mother said, "Listen, my boy, you can talk with people or you can talk with yourself, but you cannot talk on people." And the boy said, "Well, you are talking on me now." What he meant was that we are not having a conversation, you are lecturing me. So when we got into the 80s and 90s, there was a big need for equal dignity between parents and children and between men and women. And children do not develop very well when they are treated as objects. So in order for communication to succeed between adults and children, we have to learn how to establish a subject-subject relationship, which is exactly what science is telling us now 25 years later. There's another value which is what I call personal responsibility. So the idea that as a human being, I'm responsible for me and for my behavior. And in relation to children, adults have never been responsible for themselves. So whenever there's a conflict between a pupil and a teacher, or a boy and his father, the child is made guilty. And of course, children do not like that. This is not only a problem between adults and children. It is exactly the same between two adults. So if a man is constantly making his wife guilty for all the trouble they have, it's becoming a bad relationship. So instead of looking at individuals and finding out who is guilty and who is innocent, we now look at relationships. For many adults, 25 years ago, but also today, it is very difficult to take responsibility for their own mouth. So a lot of children are growing up in families where they are talked to in not very nice ways, and the relationship suffers. So the closeness disappears, and the child's feeling of being loved is becoming less and less. Another important value is the idea of personal integrity. We have never really studied the concept of children's integrity. We have realized slowly that that if a man hits or beats a woman, then he is violating her integrity, or the other way around, of course. But as you know, in France, we are still not willing to see that when we use corporal punishment on children, we are violating their personal integrity. So the idea that an individual is important and valuable for the group or for society is a relatively new concept. So this means that not only should adults protect children's integrity, but children should also learn how to respect the integrity of the adults. And what we know now is that when children are raised in families where their integrity is not violated, then they become sensitive human beings. The reason this is important is not a moral one. It's not because it is morally wrong to violate another person's integrity. The reason is that children who are violated at home begin to violate other people as they grow up, especially, of course, their own children when they get some. For parents and teachers, this means that they have to learn how to define their own boundaries. They have to learn how to say what they want and what they do not want. In this way, they will earn the respect of children and friends and partners. So the whole idea of being aware of other people's personal integrity is a very new one in our European understanding of life. And I would like to make a comment here about how I see my own role. I don't see myself as an advocate for children. I see myself as an advocate for better relationships. So if I meet a family who says, listen, Jesper, our values are completely different from yours, and we all feel well, and we are all doing well. Should we change our ways of doing things? My answer would be no. Why should you? If it works for you, then it works. And that is an important distinction about Familylab and a lot of other things. Our work and our ways of thinking is available to people who would like to investigate things. I will give you an example from 2 weeks ago. I met a mother and her 9-year-old daughter. And the daughter was not feeling well in school, and she was getting criticized, and parents got phone calls from the teachers all the time. And I asked the girl for a few examples of conflicts where she felt that her boundaries were stepped on. And it was obvious to me that her behavior was very provocative. So I said to her that, it's time that you start taking responsibility for your own behavior. But I can hear that your teachers have to learn a few things as well. So I wrote an email to her 4 teachers. And I said, I have talked to this girl, and I understand that you feel very provoked by her behavior. So I invite you to describe 3 or 4 conflicts that you have with this girl. And I would like it to be conflicts that were not successful. And then I will give you a few alternatives. So when the teacher says she uses very bad language, so I sent her outside the door. And then an hour later, she's doing the same. So to my surprise, I got letters from all 4 teachers describing a number of conflicts that they usually had. And they clearly felt that she was violating their values and the values of the school. So I gave them a few alternatives, which they're now testing in daily teaching. These teachers are Danish teachers, and after 25 years, they are now willing to consider their own behavior. And they see the value of creating much more constructive relationships to their pupils. And I'm fully aware that reality in other countries is probably different. But the message is the same, that it is no use to point fingers at the children or the teacher or the parents. The point is to show them a better way of reaching the obvious goal, which is to learn mathematics, for instance. The same if a father or mother have a conflict every day, and it comes to brushing your teeth or sitting at the table and eating dinner, whatever conflict they have, they eat the same. So the idea is not that children don't need to brush their teeth. The idea is, how can I, as a father, make my child brush her teeth without having a fight about it? Which brings me to value number 4, which is authenticity. Because part of what makes the traditional relationship between adults and children difficult is that the adults are role-playing. And the days are over where you can earn the respect of children by role-playing. So if you want a child to respect you, if you want a close and loving relationship with a child, you have to be aware of your personal authority. And in order to do that, you have to be as authentic as possible. And I'm saying as possible, because nobody needs to be perfect. But the days of role-playing are over. And you don't earn the respect from other people by using your power. Whenever you do that, you get either more conflict or fear. So management by fear is not working anymore. There's an old saying which many parents and teachers believe in, which is that it's important to be consequent. This is a misunderstanding from research in the 1930s. What is important is to be consistent, which means that you act and speak according to your values. And if you try to do that, you will very quickly get a lot of respect and a lot of love from children. So on top of these 4 values, which were equal dignity, personal responsibility, personal integrity, and authenticity, you can build other values that you find important, whether they are religious or political or philosophical. Well, both, but I usually give 1 or 2 or 3 suggestions to teachers as well as parents. Because, nobody has the time for, 2, 3, 4 years of reflection or psychoanalysis. You have to learn new ways by experiencing new ways. If a teacher does not like her language and says to the girl, I want you to stop talking like that, it's a nasty way of talking, that's her usual response. So I have to ask the teacher, does it work? Did it ever work for you with this girl? And when she says no, it didn't, you say, okay, are you ready to try something new? And most teachers are very careful. So they say, maybe. I think it's important that we understand that this girl and her teacher have exactly the same problem. The girl feels like a bad child, and the teacher feels like a bad teacher. So the girl thinks, and her mother thinks, that the teacher should be different. And the teacher thinks that the girl should be different. That's what we call a power struggle. And in this case, the power struggle results in two losers. Nobody wins. So my suggestion to this teacher is to say, to look the girl in the eye, say, I don't like it when you talk to me like this. I want you to stop it. And if the girl says, and if I don't, the teacher can say, I'm sure you will. And then turn her attention away. I'll just say it again. In this way, the girl does not feel humiliated. She doesn't feel like she's a bad person. Because we have to remember that children cannot see the difference between who they are and what they do. Let's be pessimistic for a moment. So 2 minutes later, the girl is still talking in the same way. And the teacher says, did I misunderstand you? And now comes the difficult part, which is when the teacher says, okay, then I need your help. I need you to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And for most teachers, most adults, this is the most difficult thing to say to a child. This girl will say, you are always angry with me. And the teacher will have to think in her head that, aha, so this is how this girl is experiencing me. And say, oh, that surprises me because I'm not angry with you. But let me think about it. Most teachers respond automatically and they say, that's not true, which is another humiliation. And I would like to say that if you treat this child with this kind of equal dignity, she will stop her behavior within 2 weeks. You have to teach teachers how to take care of their personal integrity in a way which is not humiliating for children. But the teacher or the parent will have to take the first step, even when they feel powerless. Well, adults, parents, grandparents, teachers are manipulating children 24 hours a day, all the time. We cannot be with children and not manipulate them. Even if we don't say a word, we manipulate them. The reason is that children cooperate, they copy our behavior. So if you are a teacher or a parent and one of your basic values is that you do not want to manipulate children, then I suggest that you stay away from them. I'm very serious. It's not a joke. we underestimate how much children want to give us what we want. So the basic dynamic between adults and children is that children want to copy us. They want to do what we do. But they do not want to be spoken to as objects.
Tonnerre d'applaudissements.